Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Oddly enough, one of the hardest movements in Tai Chi to understand is the very first movement we perform in most of the Tai Chi forms. That is the opening posture, where we step out to the side, raise our arms, and drop into the horse stance. So why is that movement, which seems relatively simple, so hard to understand? It's because all movements in Tai Chi should be and are said to be created by rotation of the waist. But when we do the opening posture, as you will have just observed, there is no visible rotation of the waist going on. So how can we understand it in the context of waist rotation? It's much easier to appreciate the rotation of the waist when we do movements like brush knee or almost any other movement within the Tai Chi forms. So in this video, I'm going to go through the opening posture and I'm going to show you where all of those hidden rotations are so you can understand them. If you're new to the channel, I'm Dr. Todd Martin, creator of the Tai Chi Code. As we go through these movements, I'm going to explain some of the theory behind the Tai Chi code and why I think the code can very rationally explain in a biomechanical sense, using real muscle movements, what the 8 energies of Tai Chi are and how we can apply those energies and understand them throughout every movement of the form, and more importantly, how each of those 8 energies translate to our everyday movements: walking, climbing up hills, ascending stairs, going down stairs, sitting, standing with proper posture. All of those activities use the same combinations of core movement that we do in Tai Chi. And if you understand the Tai Chi code, you'll be able to directly apply your Tai Chi learnings to your daily life. Let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, as you're watching the video, if you have any thoughts that you want to share, please drop a comment and let me know. And also, if you find this video helpful, make sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. You'll be getting information in this video and on my channel that I'm pretty sure you're not going to get anywhere else. All right, let's jump right in to the opening posture. First, I'm just going to demonstrate. So we sink into a horse stance, and throughout the entire movement, you could not see the waist rotations. And so now I'm going to explain those rotations, and I'm going to start doing that by backtracking our way into the opening posture by starting at the end of some of the Tai Chi forms, showing how we close up and sink into the horse stance, because you'll be able to see the rotations a little bit more clearly. And then we're going to backtrack into the entire opening. So I'm going to begin at the end of step forward and parry punch, where we do apparent close-up, and then we rotate into cross hands. And at the end of the form, we drop from cross hands into our horse stance with both palms pressing down, and then we stand up and we close. By starting there, we're going to get a better sense of the rotations, a better sense than we would get if I started from here and did the movements from there. So I'm going to get us to this point here, so we can see how we get into the initial cross hands, and we'll be able to see the rotations happening at each level of the core. And there are 3 levels of the core that control every one of our movements and create each one of the 8 energies of Tai Chi. The first element of the core is going to be our upper waist rotation, which turns either to the left or to the right. And in this case, it's going to be turning to the right. The second element of the core is the lower abs, which turn either to the left or to the right. The lower abs on the same side of the body turn in the opposite direction from the upper abs on that side of the body. So in this case, as I'm shifting back, my upper waist on the left is turning to the right, and my lower abs on the left are turning back and to the left. You can think about your belly button as the stand-in for the lower ab rotation. And we turn our belly button toward the side that is active, and that roots that leg to the ground by turning the pelvis back into the ground and pressing the heel into the ground. Not with our glutes, but with our lower abdominal rotation. And then the third element of the core is going to be our hip energy. We can either power by flexing a hip or power by extending a hip. And in this situation, after we've got here, we're going to be powering this shift by flexing the right hip. So those are the 3 elements. We're turning the upper waist into the flexing hip as we switch our root to the left leg. So you can see the rotation of the upper and lower abdomen turning against each other. We can call that torsional rotation or spiral rotation. And the right hip is flexing as I do that. After I get to this position, I'm going to move into the horse stance by taking the upper waist and changing the rotation from turning to the right and turn to the left. And that brings me into this position. I already had my right hip flexing, and it's still flexing. I already had my lower abs turning to the left, and they're still turning to the left. The only thing I did differently was turn the upper waist to the left, and that brought me into this position. Now we are going to sink into the horse stance by reversing all 3 of those elements of the core. You can see my upper and lower waist were turning to the left. We just saw how that happened. Now we're going to take the upper and lower waist on opposite sides of the body, and we're going to reverse the turn. So I'm going to turn my upper waist to the right. I'm going to turn the lower abs to the right, so you can see the turn. And then now I'm going to flex my left hip instead of the right hip. And as I flex the left hip, you can see how it pulls the body into this even parallel position with my torso flat. So what we're seeing is that the flat position is the net effect of 3 rotations. Upper and lower waist turning to the right as the hip flexes, pulling the body to the left. Hip flexion has a rotational element in it, which you can appreciate if I flex the hip like this. You can see how it pulls the body towards the flexing hip. If we did the opposite, extending the hip, it would push the body away from the extending hip. So in this case, I have the upper and lower waist turning to the right, hip flexion on the left. That drops me into the horse stance. So that is the final position we are seeking when we drop into the horse stance at the end of the opening posture. So I have clockwise rotation of the upper and lower waist, flexion of my left hip. If I was going to move directly from here into parting the wild horse's mane, all I have to do is turn the upper waist to the left, and that begins to raise the arm and starts to turn the body to the left. And then I would turn the upper waist back to the right, and that brings me into the ball carrying position. So here I have left hip flexion and clockwise rotation of the upper and lower waist. So now you can see the rotations of the waist as we drop into the horse stance. Now let's back ourselves up a little bit into the standing posture before we drop into the horse stance, so we can start to see how the opening posture is performed with rotation. So what we learned was, going into the position before dropping into the horse stance, we had counterclockwise rotation of the upper and lower waist with flexion of the right hip. And then we reversed to clockwise rotation of the upper and lower waist with flexion of the left hip. When we do the opening posture, we can practice that transition because it's going to be the same. We've done this. The arms should roll over to the front of the body, and then we begin to lift, and we get to this position. And as we start to drop, we are going to do the two movements that you just saw. Counterclockwise rotation of the upper and lower waist as I flex the right hip begins the sinking process from here. And then we complete the sinking process by reversing. Now we're back into that horse stance. So you can practice from the arms in the upper position and not worry about how you got there to begin with, but start with that counterclockwise rotation and then the clockwise rotation. And I'm just going to exaggerate it a little bit more. Counterclockwise rotation, clockwise rotation. I'm now going to do the movements from the end of step forward and parry punch through apparent close-up and through cross hands. And I'm going to exaggerate the rotation of the upper waist, so you might be able to perceive a little bit more clearly which way the upper waist is turning. And I'm going to place a marker on the lower abs so you can see which way the lower abs are turning. Sometimes it's going to be in the same direction as the upper waist, sometimes in the opposite direction. Beginning from here. Upper waist is turning counterclockwise. Clockwise. Counterclockwise. Clockwise. Continues clockwise. Continues clockwise. Continues clockwise. Counterclockwise. Clockwise. Now I'm going to go through the same movements and describe the movements of the lower abdominal muscles. Right here, it is clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, still counterclockwise, clockwise. And then finally, we're going to go through the elements of hip energy. Extension of the right hip. Flexion of the right hip. Extension of the left hip. Extension of the right hip. Extension of the left hip. Continued extension of the left hip. Flexion of the right hip. Flexion of the right hip. Flexion of the left hip. And then we're going to stand up, and I'll show all the elements will be on the right side. Upper waist turns counterclockwise. Lower abs turn clockwise, and the left hip flexes, bringing me into the standing position. And then we're going to close. Lower abs continue clockwise, upper abs clockwise, left hip flexion. And then we put our foot down by turning the lower abs back to the left counterclockwise, placing all of my root on the left leg and leaving me in a standing posture rooted on the left. Whereas now I could do the opening of the form to the opposite side. And then now I'd be ready to do parting the wild horse's mane in this direction. I know it may be a little difficult to absorb this type of analysis in the context of a YouTube video, so I'm going to pause on posting the remainder of the lesson where I go through each of the core rotations from the beginning of the opening stance, stepping out to the side, raising the arms, and dropping into the final horse stance. I'll consider posting that at a later date if there appears to be significant interest in this type of analysis. In the meantime, there's plenty of other core analysis going on in my remaining YouTube videos, which you'll find on the channel, and also in the Tai Chi Code course, which you can get through my website, which will be linked in the description section. Thanks for watching the video.